2 Mr. Basketballs, 3 members of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, and 4 members of Indiana All-Star teams. 2 of the top 10 scorers in Indiana history, most points in one season, most points in a state championship, most points in a single game. A county? A school? No, the first family of Indiana high school basketball, the Shepherds. In 1966, Carmel High School had not won a sectional championship in 41 years. A 5'7" sophomore by the name of Billy Shepherd hit a 20-foot shot at the buzzer to win the sectional and start the Shepherd family legend. Coach Bill Shepherd talks about Carmel basketball before his sons came on the scene.
We were fighting to be 5. I mean, I had one losing season, but we could never win the sectional. We'd win 13, maybe 14 ball games, and then we'd get beat by Noblesville because they had some great, outstanding talent. Tipton had some outstanding talent back then. Turnett and I don't know, I can't remember all of them, but they had some great players. And before that, it was Hobbs and Sheridan, and so kind of a rotation. And finally, when Billy hit the shot in 1966 to win the first sectional in 40 years, why it was a start. And a great thrill.
You know, we were trying to get Carmel to the next level, to be a state powerhouse. And, you know, my freshman, sophomore, and junior years, we had what I would call decent teams, really pretty good ball clubs. But when David arrived as a sophomore, I think it gave us that added flair that made us become a state contender. And even though we did not get out of the regional that year, being in the same regional with Anderson and Marion back at that time, that was a very difficult regional to play in. And Marion did beat us, even though they went on, you know, to the state finals that year and the next year. But, you know, playing with my brother, it was a great thrill. And then having your dad be coach, that combination, it brought a lot of attention to the community and a lot of recognition, you know, to the Shepherd family.
You know, I mean, it was a great thrill to play for my father in high school. You know, watching Billy play, you know, coming up at junior high, I always knew that I wanted to be a player, but, you know, I didn't realize, you know, what was going to develop over the 3-year career I had at Carmel. But, you know, I mean, getting to the, you know, state championship game as a senior and, you know, seeing a small town like Carmel really get behind the team. You know, a lot of times you couldn't even get, a ticket to a regular season game at Carmel. I mean, to be sellouts. And, you know, we look back at the film and, you know, you look at the gym, I mean, the aisles are filled with people. And I think that's where the fire marshals finally decided here at Carmel that, hey, we had to keep the aisles clear because they don't have to worry about that anymore, at least not right now. And hopefully that tradition is going to, you know, come back. But, you know, the opportunity to play with Billy as a sophomore and, you know, learn the system, you know, as a sophomore was great. And then we had some good teams, you know, even after Billy graduated and went to Butler. And, you know, he continued to be like an idol because, you know, he played at Butler. We got to go down and, you know, see him play and come back and give me incentive. And it was, you know, it was just a once-in-a-lifetime dream to do what we, you know, accomplished.
You know, Billy started, and we got beat by Marion 2 years in a row in the Anderson Regional. It was the toughest regional in the state, no question about it. I think we got 39-1. I don't remember 30-something, 36 or 7 as a junior. We got beat. He had the last second shot. They could have possibly run it, but it hit the front of the rim, went off, and we could have won. We could have beaten Marion, but we didn't. But we had a great year. I think we were 21-4 that year, and the first sectional. And then after he graduated, of course, David was coming on, and like Billy said, and David said, he said, you know, we didn't miss him because the next year after Billy graduated, we went undefeated.
The Shepherds talked about the family tradition of being a member of an all-star team and about being Mr. Basketball.
Hope was a real small school. I think there were 17 in our graduating class, 5 boys and 12 girls, and it was a nice little community, and we'd never won anything, actually won a sectional, and so when I was a senior in 1945, I think there were 14 teams. I remember you talk about playing 2 games in one day or something like that. We drew the Friday morning game, I think at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And so we played Friday morning, then we had to come back and play again Friday night. And then we had to play Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. So we played 4 games in that period of 2 days. And we were fortunate enough to, actually there were 3 schools that were real good back then. Morristown, where Marvin Wood played, and Coach Milan, of course. They won. They lost 1 game during the year to Whiteland. We lost 1 game during the year to. They lost to Whiteland. Anyway, each one of us, Whiteland, Hope, and Morristown, all lost 1 game, and each of us beat each other. And So we actually ended up winning the sectional that year, and then ended up winning the regional, and got to the semi-state and played in Hinkle Fieldhouse, or at that time was Butler Fieldhouse. And well, I remember going up there and practicing and looking at that place. You know, when you get up there and play, I've been in there as a child, but when you play, it's a lot different playing in the whole high school. You know, so it was a great thrill, and we got beat by Broad Ripple on the first game of the semi-state. But Hauser just won a sectional this past year in the class basketball thing, and that's the only sectional regional that Hope has ever won. So it was great, and I ended up making the Indiana All-Star team. It was a great thrill.
My goal as a high school player was, in all honesty, was to make the All-Star team. I think that was a realistic goal that I thought I could attain, and you know, if you get to be Mr. Basketball, that would have been icing on the cake. And I never went into a ball game thinking, well, I've got to get 30 points tonight if I want to be Mr. Basketball or this sort of thing. I never even thought about those kind of things. I just went out and played each game like it was going to be my last game. And, I was lucky enough to be voted Mr. Basketball in 1968.
I think it's probably, a goal and, something that even young kids as young as 5th and 6th graders start thinking about. If you're a player, I mean, that is the ultimate achievement for a high school athlete, I think in the state of Indiana, only because, Indiana's known for basketball. And in other states, you hear about a Mr. Basketball from Georgia or Florida. The impact is not nearly like it is in this state because of, the fans, the coaching they have at, even the junior high and especially the high school level where Indiana players year in and year out go to, national colleges and do phenomenally because I think a lot of it's the credit of the coaching in Indiana. So, to be named, second Mr. Basketball in a family, it's tremendous. And it was great for the city. I mean, and the players. I mean, it was kind of like a team and family thing. And it was, it's still talking about it. It's nice.
Scott made the All-Star team in 1992 and played for Pat Kennedy down at Florida State. And, Scotty had an outstanding high school career. He scored over 1,700 points and played on real good teams. And was very fortunate. Bob Hetty was his coach. And I thought Bob handled Scott as well as, anyone could have. And then my younger son, Jeff, came along 3 years later, and Jeff was a late bloomer. He did not have near the high school stats that Scott had, but actually, Jeff went to Huntington College and ended up becoming a small college All-American up there, and he scored 446 career three-pointers. So he was one of these kids that was a late bloomer, and he made the right choice in school because he got to play and develop and get better.
Both Billy and David were prolific scorers in high school, with Billy at number 5 all-time and David at number 10. Here's what they had to say about their records.
Well, that was back in January 6th, 1968, and I was a senior, and really I'd never even scored in the 50s or the 60s. I'd been a consistent scorer over the 4-year time frame, but, in that particular night I had 24 points at halftime, and Brownsburg had a good ball club. They won their sectional that year, so it wasn't like we were playing against a weak team. And at halftime, Dad mentioned something to the fact, I think the county scoring record at that time was like 43 or 44 points, and he said if I had a good third quarter, as we were going out at halftime, that maybe, that might be the night to go for the county record. And I recall missing my first 2 shots in that third quarter of that game, and then after that, everything seemed to fall, and I actually scored 26 points in the third quarter itself, so I had 50 going into the final quarter, and I scored 20 points in that final quarter and ended up with 70.
Before the game, if somebody asked me who had the state tournament record, Oscar Robertson with 39 points, there's no way. I mean, it was listed in the program, but you don't even look him. You don't even think about those things as a player. And, I knew, during the course of the season, it was my job, if we were going to win games, that, I had to produce. And, we oftentimes look back and think, well, if we'd have slowed the ball up against them, because East Chicago Roosevelt had a phenomenal team. It was like the 3rd undefeated team in the history of Indiana to come through the regular season undefeated and win the state championship. So we knew we were up against it, but, you look back and you think that, what got you where you were, was, we had an upbeat, fast-paced offense, and, we were high-scoring, and Unfortunately, they didn't have a three-point line back then, which would have really played into our, we'd have had a big advantage in that game. And I think we were down like 3 points at halftime, and, they wore us down. Their big guys were phenomenal, and, they had some quick guards. And, but, scoring 40 points was great. I'd have traded the 40 for a victory, obviously, but, it didn't happen, and, that's history. Being inducted in the Hall of Fame is going to be phenomenal. I think you don't realize the impact and the quality of coaches and players that are involved and that have been inducted in the Hall of Fame until you get out and you have a little age on you. And I've been out of high school for 30 years, and it's hard to believe that time goes by that quickly. But it's a real honor. When my father was inducted into the Silver Anniversary team, which I was 5 years ago, we were playing that same week in the high school state basketball tournament. And, to think that now, 5 years removed, I'm going into the Hall of Fame after his silver anniversary when I was in high school, it's scary how quickly time passes. But I think when you do get a little older, the Hall of Fame means a little bit more. Guys that are just coming out of college or just graduating from high school have no idea. And, the Silver Anniversary team was phenomenal. They take 10 or 12 players in a year, but, to be inducted, especially, in this millennium year with Larry Bird and some of the coaches and the great players that, played in Indiana, it's a real honor. Of course, you mentioned the first family of basketball. That's very nice that you mentioned something like that. It's been a daily conversation generally. How's your dad or how's Billy doing? And it's all stems from basketball in Indiana.